Now, you might have noticed the moss hanging on the trees. This is an epiphyte, actually. They call it Spanish moss because of the Spaniards coming in down Florida. Now, you see this nesting box here. This is a wood duck nesting box. That little fowl, about only this big, very colorful wood duck, made their nests up in those big cypress trees and then lost some habitat. They've now placed about 30 of those boxes out here, and they clean them out every spring. And now the bird's no longer endangered. But the babies are kept protected by that collar there where the snakes can't get them. Now there's a lesson here because when they jump off and leave home, they can never come home again. The kids hate to hear that. So here's a good way to familiarize yourself with what's out here. See this stuff floating in the water? That is called spattered dock. It's related to a pond lily. And it's narrow because of the way the water flows in and out of here. Then you see those arrowhead-shaped plants over there with the purple flower. That's called pickerel. And then over here you can get a better look at this grass that's here called sawgrass. And has like a saw-like edge. And then the bushes there beyond that is wax myrtle, how Myrtle Beach got its name. And then Carolina ash and red leaf maple and these cypress trees and these old oak trees around here. Over here on your left, you can see this structure coming up here on the left. This is called a trunk gate. Some call it a rice gate, a trunk gate. Trunk gate is more descriptive because it was a bald cypress tree trunk that they'd hollow out, burning it, scraping it, until they made like a culvert and buried in the dike that they had created all the way around that abandoned rice field there. And then these gate systems operated by a man, an African slave who was, enslaved African, who was called the trunk minder. And he would open up that gate, moving millions of gallons of water with just the face of the moon, the heavier salt, denser salt, pushing the fresh river water. And so, very predictable schedule. And they could move that water in and out of there every 6 hours if desired. Now, those Native Americans could fish out here in this water. Remember, it's river water. There's no salt, or otherwise there's no rice. And so catfish and brim and crappie and bluegill and alligators and snakes and, yeah, lots of stuff we'll talk about. And so the English coming in here. Now, if you want to go way back, in the Wayback Machine, there was a guy that came in 1560 down in Georgetown before it was Georgetown. His name was, his name was Louis Vasquez de Leon. And the little colony he started was called San Miguel, Guadalupe, Spain, you know. Well, 2 years later, he died and it went belly up, and we don't even know for sure down in Quinnipiac Bay exactly where the location was, except it was in Georgetown. So now the next thing that happens is the English start coming in here and trading with these Native Americans. Guns, beads, for animal hides. See those pink flowers there? That's wild Indian rose. There's a white flower out here called a mallow. Somebody called it a marshmallow, but it's swamp mallow. And then, I got something else for you to watch for along here, aside from the alligators. You'll see these little white flowers with spikes coming off of them. Those are called spider lilies. And we only see them here about 2 weeks, so that's why I like everybody to be able to see them while they're still blooming. So these Native Americans are now enslaved. Because, see, can you imagine? Here's the thing. 45,000 acres of rice here in Georgetown County. 20,000 folks, of which 18,000 were enslaved Africans. I'll get to that in a moment. And it took them 7 years to develop a rice field. Cutting down the trees, pulling up the roots, building a dike around a 40 or 70 acre field. I find it amazing that they were able to accomplish this huge project, making these folks so wealthy during that 200-year period with rice and indigo, which I want to talk about a little later, grown on the higher ground. Now, the diseases that came into this area, these folks are all indigenous tribes. And you know, like Easter Island and Galapagos, how when you're isolated, things are a little different. That affected these Native Americans. They began dying in huge numbers. And it could have been as simple as something like mumps or chickenpox or something more virulent like smallpox, something like that, who knows. the end result was that they had to leave their homeland and go out west. Catawba and Cherokee tribes out west as a way to survive. Now, in the meantime, there's fellows down in the Barbados area growing sugar cane. And they discovered this unique situation here with this gumbo soil, is how they called it, it's Georgetown blue clay. The long growing period in this tidal waters. Perfect for growing rice. Why haven't you been developing this faster? Well, we lost our health. They died. We don't know what the cause was. One day they're here, next day they're just migrated out of here or died along the way. Well, we have enslaved Africans working the sugarcane fields that when a tribe was defeated, they were sold into slavery, and we've managed to acquire a large amount of those folks. They've been growing rice for generations down there off the coast of Sierra Leone and Madagascar on the east coast. We can bring them into these swamps, and they will show you how to grow rice. Not necessarily because they're happy to be here, but what are they going to do? And so this really began this transition now where we have the enslaved Africans showing these folks these different techniques of how to grow the rice. Just imagine, we will talk about how they grew it here once we get out here and turn around and start heading back in. But right now, think about what they encountered out here. We have 5 different kinds of venomous snakes out here. Canebrake rattlesnake, 2 kinds of pygmy rattlesnakes, copperhead, cornel snake, and the water moccasin. And I've seen all of them. They're here. But I will tell you that I don't tell you this to scare you because, well, we've never had any up here on the front of the boat. And if we would, I'd be looking for volunteers. I probably wouldn't have any, but anyway. And then we have these 16, 18-foot American freshwater alligators. They call them that because they live in the fresh water. If you see them in the ocean, they're using the salt water to kill the parasites on their skin. They have 80 teeth in their mouth, and they have the ability to grow another tooth. And they had something out here to worry about also, and this really was scary. They called it swamp fever. The mist rising up off the marsh and the smell out here in the summer, that's what's making it sick. Swamp fever. Now the wealthy planters could go over to Europe. The folks having to work out here were kind of stuck here. Now they might migrate over to the ocean for the breezes, but they didn't identify that Anopheles mosquito that was carrying that disease, and that made it more dangerous. How do you protect yourself? The turtles out here that you see right there are called yellow-bellied sliders. We'll see some more of them. They may even put a little show for you and slide off in the water. But there they go. Thank you, guys. We appreciate your cooperation. Now, this is a public service announcement. It is against the law to feed an alligator.
Ooh.
Feed that alligator if I want to. Well, let me tell you, if you feed the alligator, you might as well kill it afterward. Because they're an equal opportunity consumer. They don't need your help. And if you feed them, you change them from a predator into a bum. They will always come to your house for that free meal, just like their relatives. Now, when they're small,
So
oh,
cute.
look, I got a South Carolina yard dog there. Look at all those teeth. But when they get big, now it's a problem. And they're chasing the kids around the backyard. They're eating all the pets in the neighborhood, so that's when the DNR has to come and take them away and kill them. Now the mother is a cold mother, and that sounds really harsh, you know. How can you say that? Well, she can't heat her body. She doesn't burn calories like we do. And so when she has babies, she actually lays eggs like a bird, you know, throwback from the dinosaurs. How is she going to incubate those eggs? Well, she probably lays them out in the sun. What's that cooking? That wouldn't work. So what she does is she takes these grasses and she makes a big pile out of it, and as it decomposes, generates just enough heat to incubate those eggs. 70 degrees on one side or the other determines male or female. And once they hatch out of those egg cases, the leathery case like, they will bring them down to the mother, down to the water's edge. The father treats them like hors d'oeuvres, so she's got to protect them for up to a couple of years. They only are about 6 inches long when they first come out of that egg case. So that's a little bit about the alligators. One other thing, in the wintertime, it gets cold out here. Not frigid, doesn't freeze, but the temperature does drop below 60 degrees in the water, and the alligator, poor thing, can't eat anything, because if it did, the stomach is already shut down. No enzymes necessary for digesting a meal. If it ate something, they would die. So what do? They live off the fat in their tail. Now, I know everybody knows about Elon Musk and wanting to go to Mars.
Yeah.
And here we are, most technologically advanced country in the world, maybe. And why haven't we done some research on how to grow another tooth and live off the fat in wherever you want to store it? I think that would work out real well, especially if you're going to Mars, you know?
Yeah.
All right, so I try to be funny here, and that's an observation that I made. So the wildlife out here, you know, we talked about the freshwater fish here. We have some river otters out here. A lot of the birds are just amazing here. There's some more of those spider lilies, yeah. And we have bobcats up here in the woods. Babies, also cute, you know. They look like a house cat. It's an attitude. And this lady said all house cats have an attitude, so no big deal there. But you wouldn't want to come across one. Somebody said they saw a black bear here, a small cub. We don't see them very often. Every now and then finds its way down here. A lot of them are up there in Carolina forest. They're more of the upscale bears.
Upscaled.
So we also have the bald eagle here, the white feathers give it its name. And Ben Franklin, good old Ben Franklin, he wanted a turkey, a wild turkey to be our symbol. Can you imagine having the president stand behind the podium and the Great Seal and you've got a turkey looking at you? I think we're better off with the eagle. Now the other one is the osprey, the fish eagle. And then we have the blue herons, we have egrets, spoonbills, wood storks, clapper rails, which makes a funny noise out there in the salt marshes, and a bird over here called the red cockaded woodpecker. Now that's a strange name for a bird, but see, it came by, honestly, by men and women that wore ribbons on their hats called cockades. And they saw the bird with that little red spot, and they said, well, look, there's a red cockaded woodpecker. Now, just give you some point of reference, the downy woodpecker is smaller, almost like the Carolina wren. And then you had the pileated on the other end. There's the blue heron going there, yeah. Some call it a pterodactyl. That's what they look like.
Yeah.
And they're very light, actually. For as big as they are, their bones are hollow. You see this right here? This would have been where a trunk gate would have been stretched across there to control that flow in and out of that field. So our rice fields are on your right, the plantation on your left. We've been on Still Creek, by the way, and not because the water runs any faster or slower. It was a moonshine operation out there. It's closed now, so relax. Now that stuff will take use it for paint thinner, you know. So the Oaks Plantation, now you guys have heard the term live oak. And the reason, what do you got? You got something? An alligator? Oh yeah, look here guys, right here on the right. We're going to slow down here and take a quick look at it. Let me tell you, very quietly, I don't want to disturb it. How you measure an alligator is from the tip of their nose to their eyes in inches, change that to feet. That one looks to me to be around 11 feet long. 11 and a half, maybe 12 feet.